Perhaps you've noticed that every year at this time that we get into the A readings instead of the C or B, whatever it is, because they seem to be a bit more fitting for the scrutinies of the RCIA people. Scrutinies. The community asks them, are you really ready to stay in that particular attitude of learning more about Christ? Do you still want to become part of this particular community? And they have to answer that question for each individual person, because Christ wants to know, is this something serious for you? Because, as we heard in the first reading, and now and then, because things weren't going right, people began to harden their hearts against God. And that's what our response was today. Do not harden your hearts, especially just because something went different than you wanted it to. And so that's why we asked them this week, next week, and the week after, are you still ready to join this community of believers? Every one of us have had some kind of thirst for God since our baptism. That's where we got first into that welling up into a living water. Christ gave himself to us, and we continue to take from that living water. And so Christ gave us this particular story, although he's in that story, about somebody who was thirsting for something that they didn't have, and they were seeking it the wrong way. Christ told a woman, go and call your husband. And she said, I don't have one. And he said, you're right. You've had 5, and the one you got now is not your husband. You've been thirsting for some kind of love and caring, and you've tried 5, now 6 different men, and you haven't got it yet. But if you take what I offer you, you will find you have satisfaction. Something that you've been seeking, and now it is here for you. But it can't be given to you from things of this life. But what are you seeking? He asked us the same thing as we come here, week after week. What are we seeking? Are we seeking a living water that started with our baptism? And are we ready to make that commitment Sunday after Sunday after Sunday as we say the creed? I believe in one God. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in the Spirit. And Paul told the Romans that they have received the Spirit. And so they already have what they need to get into full communion with Christ. And so we think about that woman that was looking for something that only she could find in Christ. Are we doing the same thing? Are we trying to find satisfaction, something from this earth? Or are we actually looking for Christ, who comes to us every time we come here. He is the God who brings us that we're looking for. Satisfaction from that water welling up into a newness of life. So we asked those people in the RCIA program, does this make sense to you? Are you willing to commit yourself to a life dedicated to Jesus? Or are you going to be like the people in the desert? Because they got thirsty, they turned against God, hardened their hearts. Is he here or not? Every now and then we ask ourselves that, I'm sure. Is God listening to me? Is God answering my prayer? What happened to God? And Jesus tells us, from our baptism, that water began to spring forth, and now we continue to use it. We were baptized into it, and now it's part of our life. It continues to give us what we need. And every one of us, somehow or other, that's what we seek. Sometimes we might get sidetracked and look for something else. But sooner or later we end up coming back. And so yesterday, with our RCIA people, we had a retreat. And we gave them the opportunity, along with all the others, to receive the sacrament of reconciliation, to admit to themselves and to God that they have things in their past they want to get rid of, that they want to forget. Because the water of baptism began to wash it away, and now we ask them to put their trust in God, that all these things that they are carrying around, and the ones who came to confession to me, they've of course never been to confession before, and so for years they've been carrying this stuff that they want to get rid of. And most of them said it with tears. So the tears were part of the living water that was washing away that which they were carrying. Today we hear Jesus telling the woman that this is what you've been seeking. I am the Christ. I'm the one you've been seeking. And she told the others, maybe he really is. And they finally said, we know. Not we believe anymore. We know this is the Christ. Of course, when I hear that and read that, I often wonder, were they part of the same people who said, crucify him? Because we know he's the Christ. Suddenly, well, maybe he's not. Let's crucify him. And so our faith tells us that even though we believe, we still have those moments in our life when we're really not sure. But it's God who gives us the living water.